Let's get this thing going. Okay, first and foremost, as always, thank you so much. We can't tell you how much we appreciate you guys coming in, spending an hour with us here at Spotlight. Appreciate you joining us for this webinar on our Insights-Driven AR Impact. It is the last of our four-part series of our Spotlight Summer Content Series, and we're super happy so I've noticed that a few of you have been here for almost all of it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Quick set of introductions. My name is Andrew Hsu. I'm a co-founder and managing partner here at Spotlight, and with me today is Laura Bladen.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Fantastic. Today we're going to be talking about impact, which is ultimately what kind of change what kind of perceived change can we make, and difference can we make inside with our clients using the AR programs, right? And Laura, as a client executive, is on the ground, boots on the ground, right? Doing the good work alongside you guys. And she has a remarkable insight regarding what are some of the real challenges regarding making an impact. How do we get started? What are some of the things, the barriers? What are the places that we've had some success? What are some real examples? So I've asked Laura to come join me and add a little bit of pragmatism to my academic conversation. With us as well is Christina Neal. You should see your little picture up there if you have it up. Christina will be monitoring the chat, and Christina, I think you will be sort of answering questions in real time, right?
Yes, I will. So if you want to go ahead and chat, I'll answer those. If there are larger questions we think that we can have a discussion around, we'll save those towards the end.
Yep, fantastic. And with today's topic, we've learned that it's a little bit more of a discussion rather than a sort of like flat out like slideware. So please, we're probably going to monitor and the hands up function inside the chat as well. So when we get to the Q&A portion or some of the discussion portions, we'll ask if you would be interested in sharing some of your experiences to raise your hand inside the chat function, and then Christina will try to leverage the Zoom interface and unmute you. So hopefully that will be a new thing that we try. Okay. So for those of you who are strangers to Spotlight, I'll just take a minute and describe who we are, what we do. I know that there's a lot of familiar names on there, and for those of you, I apologize that you have to listen to this yet again. So Spotlight, we are an analyst relations firm. Well, currently almost 60 of us, and we are utterly and completely dedicated to analyst relations. Business has been around for about 8.5 years, and today we run about 85 plus concurrent programs on behalf of our clients or with them. So it's pretty fantastic having an opportunity to work with that many clients. We have an opportunity to see what works, refine our methodologies, change things, try things, experiment with things, to refine our methodology. So a lot of our webinar series, they're all fueled out of that work, right? In the trenches, trying to do good work. How can we continue to improve? So we try to use these webinars to bring that information back out to the community. And then finally, you see at the bottom there, Spotlight Oz AR platform. In order to empower how we do AR, we created a proprietary analyst relations platform that helps us do our work. Now that platform is also commercially available. So for those of you who are looking for a tool that can help make sense of all the things that you guys are doing on an ongoing basis, that is available as well. So that's a little bit about who we are. Thought we'd just go ahead and hop into the content here. As I alluded to before, this is the fourth of a four-part series. The first of our summer content series was just what is Insights-Driven Analyst Relations. So a little bit of a description and background info. Then we went into some of the mechanics. How do I plan with Insights-Driven AR? So how do I set what I need to do next? How do I think about what do I need to do next? And then if I'm going to do analyst relations slightly differently, then what are some of the different metrics? So how do I change up my metrics to reflect the value that we're creating? Today, we're on the final portion, the fourth chapter, making an impact with insights. So let's go and hop into it. Oh, I almost forgot to say, for those of you who haven't had an opportunity to attend any of those, and if today's discussion spawns a sense of sort of a curiosity, you can always go to the resources page on our website and you'll have an opportunity to watch the replay. So hopefully that'll, you can get some of the different background material if you are interested. Okay, so for our discussion today, pretty simple two-parter. what does it mean to be more impactful? The word impact to me is pretty broad. It can mean so many different things. I think that for us to have a substantive conversation, I think it's important for us to define what does it mean to be impactful using analyst relations, and specifically, how does being insights driven actually help us do that? And then for the second component, which is how do we actually create more impact using AR, right? So it's great to be philosophically aligned with this insights-driven approach, but how do I actually sort of make a perceived and sort of and visible difference? So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So two pieces, two parts. Feel free to chime in at any point in time. Like I said, we'll be monitoring the chat. So let's start by defining impact. What do we mean by the word impact? So before I go into that specific definition, let's work towards it. I wanted to share our sort of a challenge that we always have here at Spotlight. And we think that our challenge is actually the same thing that you guys are dealing with on an ongoing basis. The first thing that we keep having to ask ourselves is, are we getting absolutely every ounce of value that we possibly can out of our firm's investment in our channel, in industry analysts? I know it's really relatively straightforward, but in our world, we are a consultancy, and we constantly having to sort of defend our value. On the call, I see a couple of you are actually from the agency space as well, so you know what this is like, right? And even if you're working inside a firm, this is just being a good steward of a firm's resources. Am I doing everything I possibly can to get every ounce of value out of my channel, out of the thing that I do the most? So that's sort of like step number one. The second challenge that we had was, how do we elevate the visibility and value of the analyst relations function? And I think that's something that we think about all the time, right? AR, the understanding of it isn't evenly distributed across different firms. Different companies that I've gone to, different clients of ours, their executive teams have a different point of view regarding the AR function, what it should do, and how valuable it is. So we're constantly challenging ourselves to say, how do I elevate the visibility and how do I elevate the value? Now, it's a two-headed component, right? I have to do something that's more valuable, and then I would like to get credit for that through a visibility perspective. People have to see it. So there's that element. The objective here, obviously, is I'm looking for budget security. I want more executive support, executives that show up on time, attend our calls, respond to our questionnaires, fill out the things that we need them to fill out, right? And prep for the conversations they need to have. So how do I elevate the visibility? And then finally, how can we make improvements with relatively fixed near-term resources? This is a real challenge. I want to make a bigger impact, but the fact of the matter is that I don't have an unlimited set of resources. Especially in the near term, chances are our budgets for events are relatively set, our subscriptions are relatively set, our staff is relatively set, and here at Spotlight, it's no different, right? We are constantly trying to do more things that are more valuable, but our retainer with our clients is relatively fixed. So how do we optimize? How do we refine? How do we get smarter about the words that we do in order to make a bigger impact without having more resources, which in fact is the reality that most of us live in, right? Just because we have a great idea doesn't mean somebody's going to open up the checkbook immediately. So this is the challenge that we're having. And how do I do that? For those of you who are new to this series, I just want to spend one quick moment, right? We said, how can we be inspired to evolve the work that we do? Where can we look for inspiration? And one thing that really stood out to me and all the delivery leads here at Spotlight is, Forrester has been going down this pathway for a little bit, right? So it's an evolution on top of their Age of the Customer research, which is this idea of an insights-driven business. They have this playbook they've been publishing, talking about what our insights-driven business is, how do they operate, and how do they gain a competitive advantage. And the key takeaway that they had here is that, I love it, this wonderful, wonderful sort of headline here. A new kind of firm is stealing your customers. Insights-driven firms are growing at an average of more than 30% annually and are on track to grow 8 times faster than global GDP. And what I really love here is a clear description. These customer-obsessed firms systemically harness insights across their organization and implement them to create competitive advantage through software. So the components is obviously customer obsession. which I would hope that us and our clients, we continue to be that way, right? Who are the people who are buying our products and services? What are their specific needs? What are their experiences with my firm? I want to understand everything about that. And then I want to go ahead and harness all the insights that I possibly can. I want our firm to react to them. It's for competitive advantage. So competitive advantage. So we looked at that and said to ourselves, what is AR's opportunity here? What's our opportunity to help our firm be more competitive in this insights-driven world? And that's what we said, like, what do we do? What can we do? Well, we can systemically harness analyst feedback. And that feedback is on our business and our products. Are we good at something? We can systemically harness the perception they have regarding our competition. We can harness their observations on the marketplace about our customers and prospects. And we can do so either through the words that we share when we're on an interaction, briefing, inquiry, advisory, or otherwise, or during published research, things that we spot in the words that they use. Not only published research, but also blogs, tweets, and otherwise. So the idea here is, in an insights-driven business, you're always looking for sources of inspiration and data. And we are masters of a specific type of information, right? We are sitting on top of all this information in our channel. So this idea of how do I challenge and evolve the work that we do to be more impactful is based around this. I know that many of you go, yeah, I do that, right? I know when during our first call, we did a poll and we said, are you doing this? And the majority of people would say, yes, I am. I am finding out important things and I'm sending it to the people that need to see it. Well, I think that we're trying to delineate here is this idea of systemically versus opportunistically speaking. In my experience, a lot of our clients, a lot of people that are doing AR, they occasionally share the things that they find, right? The systemic word has a real implication. I want to go ahead and hone in on this a little bit later on. So let's talk about expanding the mandate to maximize impact. So we are in the business of traditional AR, and I know I'm being overly simplistic here, but the basic premise here is our historical responsibility to our firm is to build and shape the reputation of our firm in the marketplace. And what I mean by that is we are in the business of making our companies and our products famous for the things that we want them to be famous for, right? We are out there telling the world what we do. Now, where we're talking about now, insights driven, like this idea of being part of the answer, part of being more competitive, this is sourcing and sharing the insight our firm needs to be more competitive in the marketplace. It's essentially saying, hey, I used to do only this, but can I expand my mandate to do a little bit more of this on the right-hand side, right? Can I evolve it to this way? The way that I like to describe it, in a quippy little phrase I've had in my head, has always been, when you're shaping your reputation, you're essentially going out there and describing to the world your firm's accomplishments, right? You're inside our channel, we do it all the time. We go to an analyst and we say, look at how amazing my company is, how fast we've grown, what are the clients that we've won, how fast is our product building, what are the new differentiators that we have, what are the case studies that I can tout, right? That we're always touting the accomplishments of our firm, but we're almost always looking backwards. What has my company already done? And then sometimes, from a vision perspective, we're saying, what does it plan to do? But on the insights-driven AR side, you have an opportunity to say, I want to be a fundamental everyday contributor to the way my firm makes its decisions and how competitive it is in the marketplace. So I'm going to sort of hone in on that component. So in order to be more impactful in our world, we are thinking outside of the traditional mandate of AR. So, or at least expanding a little bit. So I was testing this a little bit with some folks inside our firm, and the number one question that people came up with is, you say competitive, how, right? What insights make us more competitive? And I thought to myself, that's a great question. Let's try to answer that. So first and foremost, we know this. This is what we do all the time. Through our analyst channel and the things that we do, we can validate our self-perceived strengths and weaknesses. So this is, I think I'm good at something. I think we're poor at something. I can go through the analyst channel. I can validate that that is true. As somebody who is an avid golfer, I know for a fact that without a third party to look at you, there's no way for you to tell whether you're doing something right or wrong. What you may perceive to be a strength may not be a strength. What you perceive to be a weakness may not be a weakness. So getting a third party is huge. And that, to build on top of that, There's also this idea of identifying unseen comparative weaknesses and unexpected strengths. So we may think that we are awesome at something, but then we talk to an analyst and they're like, you know what, that's not what I hear in the marketplace. That's not what your competitors are saying. That's not what your customers are saying. And that's what your your prospects are saying. You think you're strong, but you're in fact not. And then unexpected strengths. You may not have talked about something, but an analyst is like, you know what, your customer support strategy or your partner strategy knocks it out of the park. I see you guys doing this and I see no one else doing this. That unexpected strength may be something that you've never talked about. It may not be showing up in all the different the materials that you have, your marketing materials. Your salespeople may not be talking about that. That is a missed opportunity when you don't know about an unexpected strength. You can spot emerging threats in the marketplace. Analysts have an opportunity to talk to a lot of our prospects and buyers. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of the buyers are talking to analysts in a more candid way. Sometimes they even talk to us, right? So we can, through our channel, find out if our customers are starting to shop. Through our channel, we can start to see if some ancillary or adjacent solutions are being gain momentum. So there's that component. We can monitor competitor shenanigans. The shenanigan thing is real, right? We all know this. Our competitor salespeople are out in the marketplace. They're telling our prospects all kinds of things. They're trying to try to insert all kinds of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? All kinds of FUD into the buying process. By talking to the analysts, we can find out what kind of shenanigans our competitors are doing. What kind of misinformation are they trying to insert into the marketplace about our solutions? And then we can spot buying barriers and shape selling messages. Hey, listen, these prospects, they're not using those words to buy. They don't have that kind of budget, or they do. Or maybe this buying thing is happening at the manager level rather than the VP level, right? I can spot these buying barriers of things. Who am I saying to and how am I saying it wrong? And then how can I fix that? So that makes us more competitive. And then finally, we can inform emerging business diversification strategies. Wow, that was a lot of words. My MBA type. The next slide's super nerdy, so bear with me for a little bit. But you can inform how your firm continues to make investments in order to grow. So these things make us more competitive. There is no doubt. If I am able to do these things and share them with the right things inside my firm, I have no doubt that my firm will be able to react more quickly, make better decisions, and actually win more business. And I'm not sure that enough of us are standing on this pillar. I think we're doing a good work in our channel. I think we're knocking it out with waves and magic quadrants and positioning. I think we're managing our activities. I don't think we're getting enough credit for this stuff. So that's sort of like where I'm going down. So let's talk about that last point, like how companies diversify. I'm not gonna try to go too long on this, but this is I found this fantastic thing, and it's been a while since I've seen it. This is an NBA-ish chart, and it's a 2x2, and we love 2x2s because we are in analyst relations. And it's called the Ansoff Matrix. It's been in the HBR since 1957. It is a long-standing and very well-respected chart of how helping business leaders make decisions. So on the x-axis at the bottom, you have products and services. Is it an existing product that I'm talking about, or is it a new product and service that I want to launch? On the y-axis are the markets. Is this an existing market that I'm familiar with, that I'm already selling into, or is this a new market that I wish to go into, right? So existing versus new product or service, existing or new customer or market, right? Those are the 2x2s. Now, what we're very used to talking about, what I've been talking about before, is I can feed the competitive intelligence and corporate positioning side of things. I talked a lot about that. Am I saying it right to the right people? Do I know my strengths? Am I spotting my right weaknesses, right? I've already talked about that component, comparatively speaking. But in each one of those things, whether your firm is trying to launch a new product into your existing customers, or sell a new product to your existing customers, or sell new products to new customers, there are market entry studies, there are acquisition studies, there are concept testing. There's all these research projects that your company needs to do in order to make sure they're making a smart decision there. I see a role for us to play in all of those things, right? Hey, analysts, we're thinking about launching a product into that marketplace. What do you think? Hey, I think we're going to launch this thing into this world. Does it feel special? What are the needs of the buyers and what questions are they asking you at this point in time? How big do you think that this market is? There are so many things, and I'm saying these words. I know all of you hear this information all the time. So we have the power not only to help in that bottom left-hand corner, which is where we spend the majority of our time. We have a tremendous amount of opportunity to go help our firm make the decisions in the other three buckets. So that's sort of like advanced speak here, a little MBA academic speak, but the fact of the matter is that if we do insights-driven analyst relations right, and we're willing to look outside of our bucket, or in other words, looking outside of our corner, right? We have an opportunity to add value in the other quadrants for our firms. So that's sort of the plea that I have. So now that's all nice, but we all know that the things that I find from analysts, our executive teams don't sort of, buy in wholesale, right? There are often objections and skepticisms, right? Business leaders harbor doubt, and we need to overcome them. And let me share with you a few of these, and these are going to sound familiar. First and foremost, it's very hard to see analyst perception or anybody's perception or opinion as data or insight. The natural tendency is to say, isn't that just somebody's opinion? How is that considered data, right? How is that considered insight? The second point is, analyst perceptions can be mis or underinformed. They're just like any other human being. Their understanding of us in the marketplace is limited by who talks to them, right? Or how often we do it. It's easy for an analyst to become misinformed, either because they just heard it from the wrong person, heard data, or frankly, underinformed. We just haven't told them something for a long time, right? So when that perception comes off as wrong, you can lose the trust of the executive hearing it if we don't manage their expectations. And then finally, in points of conflict, right, where the tech leader, your speaker, your head of product, your head of sales, your CEO disagrees with an analyst, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but they almost always believe that they know better than the analyst. I very rarely run into a situation where my executive just went, yep, I guess they're right and I'm wrong, right? So I'm sure you guys run into that kind of thing all the time, right? So we have to understand the environment in which we're selling into. We have these objections and skepticisms that we have to overcome. So let's talk about that, right? How do we help our firms interpret these insights? We have the responsibility to help the people that we're sharing it with, but making sense of the data. We can't just let them like flounder on their own. So point number one, there is power in aggregated expert perspective, right? Isn't that it? It is, if one analyst believes something, that's okay. But what if 10 analysts believe it? What happens if 12 analysts share that feedback with them? What happens if that's 12 analysts from 3 different firms? At some point, the aggregated analyst perspective becomes really, really powerful. And it's depending on how much you trust that analyst, how informed they are, how expert they are, how long they've been covering the category, and how well you respect their opinion, it might just take one analyst, right? But in those things where you're talking about something else, you might need to go get multiple opinions. So you should help and your business understand how aggregated it is, how well informed is it, right? You need to help your firm, your business leaders, and learn how to interpret it. Then the second thing is perception is reality. You might go to the analyst and go, they just don't understand. They don't get it. They believe that we're not as strong as the other people, but I think they're wrong. Well, guess what? If multiple analysts believe this is reality, perception is real, right? If they're hearing it from your competitors, if they're hearing it from the marketplace, if they're hearing from your prospects, perception is reality. If the market believes that we don't have a strength in an area, we have a perception shaping challenge ahead of us, and that's work for us to go do. And then finally, a community of advocate analysts is an amazing market sensor. So there's a lot of words here. Community means many, right? There are more than one analyst, an advocate analyst, somebody that I know well enough. Maybe they're not saying that I'm the leader, but they at least care about my well-being. They know about me. I've spent the time to build that relationship. And then that person is talking to my prospects, my competitors, or otherwise. And they can serve as that market sensor. What are my risks? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Who's coming up? Who's leaving, right? This gives us another reason to talk. So when we were originally doing pricing here at Spotlight, people asked, how do you price? We said, hey, listen, we can, how many relationships do you want to build, right? So who are you trying to be friends with? So we often think about, and we did some benchmarking, like how many people on average, how many analysts on average should an analyst relations manager manage on a day-to-day basis? You guys have probably seen those benchmarks, like 10 to 15, 12 to 15, 10 to 12, somewhere in there. Well, in a true traditional AR sense, you're treating that analyst as a person that I have to make friends with, and I want them to write about me nicely, right? So that's one way. But if you think about it, like I want another sensor in market, I want one more person in market who's qualified enough to spot danger on my behalf. Now you start thinking about it in a different way. Not only, even if they don't publish a single word, if they're constantly talking to my competitors and they're really educated about me and they're out there talking to my prospects, I am creating new market sensors that are going to help me be more competitive. So it's another reason to build that relationship. And then finally, like any other insight source, right? Any source. I don't care whether it's your NPS report. I don't care whether it's your brand recognition surveys. I don't care whether it's your interviews with the sales team. Any insight source, cross-channel collaboration is important. If I hear there's a weakness from an analyst, we go talk to the salespeople and they'll go, yep, that's what we're also hearing. You're going, oh my God, that's like 2 data points from 2 different sources. If I find a third, if we don't act right now, we're in trouble, right? So cross-channel corroboration is important. Go find out. Don't go teach your business leaders that you use this source to identify issues, and then you go corroborate in a different channel. The combination of that is how you act, right? That how you become more competitive. So that's the interpreting insights thing. They're going to have skepticisms. If we're going to do this, we have to teach them how to read it, and we're going to have arguments at the tip of our tongue on why they should do so. Whew. Okay, so we got here. How do we define impact? Insights-driven AR impact, and specifically, we define it as incorporating our harnessed insights, borrowing words from the analysts themselves, across the organization in order to achieve better business results. How do I incorporate what I find throughout the organization in service of creating better business results? If you're doing that, and if you're doing more of it, that's when you're maximizing impact. How do I create that constantly? So when we did our sort of internal review, the first question that somebody asked, and this was somebody who was does AR for us on a constant basis. So like, you know what? Can you answer this question? Why do this? Why invite the trouble, right? I see somebody who's a practitioner in this space, who is working on limited amount of time, probably a limited amount of sleep, a limited amount of budget. You know, they're already just busting their tails trying to do a good job. Why would I invite the trouble of doing something else and trying to make friends with new parts of my business? And why do it? Well, I think this is probably the what's in it for me part of the conversation. I think that first and foremost, it's just better work, guys. If you're talking to the business leaders within your firm and you're saying, what information do you need in order to be more competitive? Those interactions are much more interesting than, can we do one more slide review on a briefing deck, right? I know you have to do that. You have to do that basic work, but frankly, these interactions are much more interesting. It makes AR work much more intentional. If you know what an analyst thinks about you, and if you know there's a misperception that you have to fix in the marketplace, guess what? That's what you're going to do, right? You know there's more information for you to find. There's something that the analyst believes you that is wrong that you need to fix, or there's something really, really important and a real threat, and you have to work with your business partners to fix that. That makes it intentional. And frankly, it gives us a more meaningful voice. Don't just be the AR person. Don't just be the person that annoys your product leaders once a year to fill out a questionnaire for the Wave or Magic Quadrant, right? It gives you a meaningful voice. We've all been there. We're sitting in the room and it's like the adults are speaking to each other and they are sitting there like taking notes, right? We've all been there. Have a meaningful voice. I'm here as a representative of the collective wisdom of the analyst channel. I'm here to share with you what I found, and I'm here to give you a channel to ask more questions into that marketplace. It gives you a meaningful voice and a meaningful role. And consequently, it's a career accelerant. by increasing the criticality and the visibility of our work, right? We open up pathways to other opportunities. And if you're a manager, I don't care if that means becoming the director. And if you're the VP, I don't care if that means becoming the CMO. I don't care if you're in running ops for AR and you aspire to maybe be on product marketing team one day. You're not going to do that just doing the AR stuff. You're going to do that by becoming really wise about how the market sees you and be able to contribute that information back to your firm. So, this is a different way to think about it, right? I want to be more important within my firm. I want to have a more meaningful seat at the table. And if I do this work, am I ambitious enough to start thinking this way? I increase the visibility of what I do. And if you guys have been, those of you who have been with us for a while, you guys know that we are nothing short of ambitious, right? Constantly trying to evolve and sort of elevate our profession. And this is part of that. So this is the why do it. All right, Laura. So, Christine, any questions so far in the channel? Does anybody have any questions at this point in time? If you have a question, raise your hands, write some chat into it. Please let me know. But this is, you know, I'm championing some interesting things here, right? We good?
We're good.
We're good. Okay. Everybody's like sitting here quietly plotting their path, I hope. All right, let's talk about creating impact. Okay, so about getting to work. So there's no way that you're gonna go into your company tomorrow and go, look how important I am. Look how you're gonna use these insights. Look how amazing that I am. I know that you're used to getting an email from me every once in a while, but now I want you to be suddenly inspired to do this all across the board. We know that's, I know it's hard. So there's a integration progression. There's a process that you have to go through to get there. The first one is reveal. I have to first share, contextualize, and explain my discovered insights. So we talked about before. I need a mechanism, right? How do I take the things that I find? How do I give the context for how it was discovered to the person that I'm sharing it with? And then how do I explain to that person how to discover those insights? That's step number one, right? You have to show them first. We'll go into it a little bit later, but let me tell you, like, one thing that we do that knocks this thing out of the park on a constant basis is the first time an executive team reviews the results of a legitimate perception audit, something that's done wide, broad, something they've had an opportunity to put their work in from a question perspective. You get that information, you get analyst perception, relative strengths and weaknesses, product line by product line, market by marketplace. What does the analyst think we do best? What do they think we do worse? Who do they think our biggest threats are? If you ever take a full-blown perception audit, and not just like a cursory, just AR one, but a legitimate perception audit back out to the executive team, and you reveal it to them, they're yours forever. They're yours forever. We can talk a little bit more about that, but that starts the insights journey in a way that you would never believe. The progression goes from there to merge, right? So it's a trial, it's a test, it's a pilot. Incorporate insights to existing work processes. And the way that we do this, and Laura will talk about that, which is, I've shown you what I can find. Where can you use it? What do you already do today that you could take this information and would make that work more productive, right? So that's that process of the next progression, if you will, of doing it. The next piece is create. I have now shown this information to my business partner, product marketing, right? Product, we're talking about sales. I've shown it to them and they go, my goodness, I have a new idea, right? I have a new thing that I've always wanted to do, but without this information, I was never able to do it. I can establish a new consumption process with my business partners. And by consumption, I mean, I take an insight, I consume it into a body of work, and that which makes my firm more competitive, right? Makes it better. I take that and I use it. And then finally, operationalize. There's a habituation process. Just because I try it and I do it once, how do I do it all the time? If I update my sales battle cards quarterly and I change my internal salespeople's scripts monthly, that is a habit. Can I use these insights to change my scripts monthly? How do I change my sales battle cards quarterly? The roadmap review is done on a bi-weekly basis. What are the things that I need to do to send it into them? We have to practice. We have to work together and figure out like what works and what doesn't work. We have to refine. Okay, so how am I going to get this thing better? And then I'm going to do these things for these different insight cycles. Now you're probably asking the question of how do I get more resources? Andrew, you probably alluded that in the short run, I have fixed resources, but you don't have to we don't have to have resources fixed in the long run, right? Tomorrow, you don't have more money. But if I go in there and I show that I'm fundamentally updating these things with all my other business partners, this is about funding it. If you if you love this once, if you want this every quarter, let's try to find a way for us to get a little bit more funding. Let's get more allocation, right? If there's internal allocation, can I get more? I'm adding more value now. Is there something else that you can I get more resources, a person, dollars, attention? How do I get more resources and I kind of fund this process? So in the near term, it is about showing what they don't know. In fact, the fact of the matter is I've never seen us be able to use a deck to convince somebody. Like I can't walk in with a presentation and say, look how amazing, imagine what this would look like. We've always had to do it first, show it to the executive buyer, surprise and delight, and then they go, imagine what would happen if this happened all the time. And then we establish a new insight cycle. Then we get more funding for it. So that's sort of the progression of what we've seen work in general. So I'd like to transition now, like out of the general and maybe into more of the discussion period, because I think Laura's got some examples.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, just looking at, what are some of the ways that we can get started with insights sharing. We can start this at a very granular level and build on it from there. So using the digital tools that the AR team and our stakeholders already rely on every day, including things like email, internal newsletters, intranets, Slack, and other collaboration channels. All of these tools can be brought to bear. We do have at Spotlight a number of clients who have started using Slack as a tool for real-time updates on the program and looking at how can we make sure that we're getting information into the hands of our stakeholders, particularly when we might have an upcoming interaction with that analyst who's providing feedback, and really allowing them to not only see it, but respond to it and start a dialogue about it if they choose to. That's been incredibly effective, and also is something that keeps engagement from our stakeholders, keeps them attuned to what's happening in the channel. In addition to sharing analyst insights, we'll often share regular program updates and information and resources that they need. So there are a multitude of ways that these channels can be helpful. One of the things that makes digital channels and really any channel effective is making sure that we deeply understand the needs of our stakeholders and oftentimes think about how are we making sure that we're segmenting our content to fit different needs, whether that's across sales, marketing, product, executive teams. What is that particular group going to be most interested in hearing? And how can we make sure that we get that information when they need it? So from a marketing standpoint, that may be information like report mentions or reach of our message through the analyst channel. For sales, it could be intel on positioning or competitive intelligence that we get from analysts. It could also be something like product or capability feedback that can inform, as Andrew was mentioning, our roadmap development. So how do we incorporate those insights into things that we're already doing to improve our offering over time? This two-way communication with stakeholders is extremely valuable. It often provides good inputs for the program too and sparks ideas about things that we can be communicating differently or better. But we do also want to keep in mind, and this goes back to funding and resourcing, how do we sustain this over the long term? So that's one way to make sure that we're getting started on a certain scale, seeing how it goes, gauging the level of participation and also the amount of time that it's going to take, and then building it into something more.
Yeah, that's awesome. Christina, I think you just pinged me and you said there's a question.
Yes, there is. We have a question on, this is saying, curious how this work compares with market research intelligence.
No, that's a great question. So I was in sort of Minneapolis with the client, and it was a new client of ours. We're doing the sort of like the immersion interviews, so just onboarding. And during that process, one of the stakeholders was the product marketing group. And inside this group, they had a pretty substantial one. They worked in a very, very competitive environment. There were a lot of new competitors that were coming up. And part of that was the CI function, so the competitive intelligence function, the market research function. They didn't do all the different forward-looking market research, like sizing opportunities or anything like that, but they did a lot of the competitive monitoring, and they were using tools to do everything from like monitoring like website changes of our competitors, pricing changes. But the interesting thing that they did too was competitive changes, right? Trying to figure out like monitor competitors. They had no idea that they always read the reports, right? They tried to like consume this information, but they just didn't know that like it was almost like the analyst expert opinion. And you guys all know this, right? Analysts write what, 20% of the things that they know, right? 80% of it's actually hidden and saved for inquiry. They were passive consumers of the analyst channel rather than active consumers. So what we did was we changed it around a little bit, right? So I went to that CI function and say, hey, how can I make your work better? And this is one of the first examples of it, because this is a few years ago. So what they said is, I've got questions about this. I've got questions about pricing. I've got questions for like comparative strengths. And they showed us their what questions they wanted to answer. And then we just started like putting that into every prep meeting. So based on every executive that was having a conversation with the analyst, we'd have them ask a handful of these different questions. And it just got into a habit. So every quarter, I think they were meeting in order to get the CI to give them the stuff. And then they would ask some questions. We would change the questions that we asked, and then we just get into the cycle of changing it up on a constant basis. So the question is, how does it relate to it? It's directly related to it. Except we just have a unique, like often we're the only ones with the seats, so we're the only ones who know who have the seats. And so little of it's written down in research. So much of it is actually word of mouth or actually done through the inquiry itself. So it's almost like we can support them by helping them ask those questions. So it's really a supporting function into that world. Laura, talk to me about the Slack thing a little bit. So we use Slack internally, right? So it's like high impact. Do you see any issues like with that? That feels like that sometimes Slack's a little overwhelming for me.
Yeah, I mean, it does invite that two-way communication. So if there are resource constraints and we're not always able to respond, over time, you could lose some engagement. So I think it's about knowing your team and also knowing your audience. We also know a lot of executives are extremely busy and don't necessarily have time to check a Slack channel or keep up to date with those conversations. So maybe there's another vehicle that works better for that particular audience. So it's all about customizing to the need of your organization.
Yeah, and I actually have talked with a few clients on how they utilize it with the sales channel. So sales have a Slack channel directly to the AR team. And so as they are in prospecting conversations and they hear something they might not know, they have direct line to quickly chat someone in the AR function. Then they'll respond either with reports or upcoming activity they have with an analyst. And they may even be able to name drop which analyst to tell the prospect to call out to if they're an advocate and if they believe that they'll say nice things.
Yeah, that's great. Because I mean, there's no way for the sales team to know, right? They don't know like what level, what relationship we have, who's a friend right now, right? You know, it's like there's entire teams that do, oh my God, customer success, right? They're the go-tos for like customer references. Like, am I doing good work for a client right now or am I not? And they're the ones who weigh in. And I think we're the keeper of the analyst advocates, right? Who can do that? Who can vouch for us right now and who wouldn't vouch for us right now? You know, Laura, you talk about this like segmenting content by audience. I think this is one of the biggest challenges when we kind of talk about it, because every audience kind of wants it differently. So I've reviewed deliverables on our team, and you know, sometimes we're writing like big long newsletters that are going out to broader teams. There's summaries, there's executive overviews, there's quarterly strategic check-ins. So I think the insight thing is one part, right? Getting into the habit of, I found these things that I think you would be interested in. And then there's the degree to which the detail that you want to provide. Because I know that one of our clients, I thought was really interesting. They got buy-in from a specific audience that said, I want to look at this on our intranet. And I want to see it on Fridays, right? That's when I want to consume it. And I want to see things in these 3 different categories. That was pretty awesome. You get the audience to buy in. You've shown them the stuff. They agree that they want to see it. And then we just need to summarize the findings in 3 major categories, write them down and put them into the internet on an ongoing basis. Now, that might seem like work, but that's a process. It's a perfect example of somebody's expecting something from me. They see value in it, they requested it. It's a specific audience that I could do that work. And then they start to see more value out of the AR channel, right? Because it's constantly in front of their face. So that updated, making things, sometimes the email, a big gigantic newsletter is a little overwhelming. So can I create something bite-sized that people will look at and go, yeah, I get value.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'd like to add a little bit there, going back to your comment on perception audits and how powerful those can be. When we write the questions for the analysts and we bring in potential CI questions, we bring in potential sales questions. I think when we formulate the questions, we have a good sense in our mind of which audience will care about which questions. And so as we aggregate all that feedback and we synthesize it, we analyze it, it naturally lends itself to then share out with those parties. So anything about go to market goes to marketing, anything that goes about competitors can go to multiple. But I think having a strategic thought in how you form the questions will also help you on the backside. Share them.
Right. So you know who you're going to send it to in the design of the thing itself.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I think that those perception audits are sort of absolutely huge. When you co-create them and they get in the habit of seeing them, honestly, here at Spotlight, that's something we're seeing more and more. And it's not just the general perception, which is like, what are you most familiar with us on? Like, we're getting into some pretty in-depth stuff. So for those of you who have some questions about like, how do I enrich my sort of my perception audit, right? Sometimes, I mean, this is one of the big value elements of like, all right, we have the right to ask the analyst, X number of times a year, what do you think of me, right? I mean, let's use that opportunity wisely, and let's make sure that we bring that data back in a way that can be consumed. And just like anytime you're trying to write a survey, you have to think about like what kind of infographic you're going to create before you do it. So that's just the same thing, just making sure that you get the audience right. I think we have another slide, right, Laura? Yep.
We do. Yeah, so this one is around different formats, face-to-face, or now during pandemic times, what has become virtual insight sharing through virtual events that we might have with internal stakeholders. An example of this is something like a sales kickoff, perhaps, where we have a critical mass of folks gathering for a particular event that's a routine way to refine the strategy and share learnings. One of the most valuable things that I've seen the AR team do in terms of ways to communicate with sales is to actually have a module at a sales meeting where we sort of set up almost a roundtable format and go through and talk about different areas of topical focus aligned to the business. In the case that I had the opportunity to attend one of these meetings, it was around a product offering. And so we had different tables dedicated to analysts who cover different aspects of the particular product, and really just used as an opportunity to share what analysts are thinking, how they perceive the company, the product, buyer needs, sharing those learnings, but also getting input from the sales team to inform some of the conversations that we have with analysts in terms of, here's what we're hearing from buyers, and here's how we're bringing that to bear in the conversations in the way that we talk about the product. So it really felt like a way to build relationships and create momentum. I think so much of this is really having the understanding, mutual understanding with our key stakeholders, forming those relationships, which of course is best done through some of these in-person sessions or now virtual sessions that will become in person at some point. Oftentimes there is a passing familiarity with relevant research with the analysts. They may be hearing about this from the buying population, but not quite making the connections. And this is a way to sort of have a light bulb moment about, oh, here's what that prospect meant when they made this particular comment, or here's where that point of view is coming from. So just one idea for how to really manage that communication with a larger group of people and create some more lasting engagement.
Yeah, it's so interesting. For those of you who are not familiar with the product marketing, who don't report directly into the product marketing function, that's something really to pay attention to, especially if you're siloed. Sometimes it can be hard not to an opportunity to talk to those guys. So I've walked in multiple times to companies and the product with so strong product marketing functions. So for those of you who don't know, they deal a lot like packaging and pricing. So you know, how should we package this thing up? How should I price against my competitors? They also deal with things like sales enablement. So what kind of sales decks do they need? What kind of one-sheeters? What kind of web page and landing pages? What are the different sales battle cards? I've even found like you know, having the face-to-face with those guys, getting into the habit of getting co-creating with them, like that's key. I actually was so inspired by like how they did work. I started going to I went to a product marketing world. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that before. Sort of conference just to get into their world and how they think. They're constantly struggling with this thing that we can find. So of course they're trying to figure out what kind of fidelity do they create this material and how often do they update it for their sales partners as well as their marketing partners. But at the end of the day, like what we can find for them, it's absolutely huge. It's absolutely critical to what they do. I'd love to just like hear, is anybody got any other things that work inside your companies? Are there any other examples that you guys have that it's like, here's how we've created a relationship or a pure relationship within my firm of how they consume the things that I find. Is there anything sort of like that you guys would like to share with the rest of the group? Are we shy? Nothing, Christina.
Nothing so far. If you do, if you go ahead and raise your hand, that way I will see and know.
It's amazing. I've been to KCG with some of you. I know that you guys talk a lot. So this time I'm gonna have to prod a few of you next time. Okay. So in that case, let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about some of these elements. Like, how do I know that I'm doing it right? And Andrew, you talk about impact. You know, I think I'm doing it, but what's an indicator of success? When will we know that we're doing it right? We thought of a few like sort of indicators. One is that your business partners have standing expectations of AI. What I mean by that is they're no longer, they go, you know what? I expect that you're smart, right? I expect that you find interesting things. I don't want to delight them every time I share some kind of like insight with them, right? I want them to wake up in the morning and go, I wonder if AR has found anything, or I wonder when I get that report next, right? Your expectations are set with them. We talked about your insight discovery approach. It's co-created with your business partner. So it's no longer something that you're just writing by yourself. The perception audit is not authored just by you. The prep questions for the inquiries aren't written just by us. You're now talking to different folks and saying, what would you like to know more about? And how can I ask the question in a way that'd be more valuable to you? Or is there data that I can bring back that you can use, right? Find a way to start creating co-creation with those business partners. If you're doing that, that's an indicator of success. And your business partners are relying on your insights to feed their work, right? You know, they're like, I need to do this on the second month, right? Or the third month or the fourth week. You know, third week, my expectation is I need this from you in the first week. I know it sounds like work, guys, because it is, but this is a part and parcel of the whole idea of like maximizing impact and raising the visibility and value. If nobody expects something from you in order for them to do their work, chances are you're going to be an afterthought. The moment that you become not part of their business process, the moment that you can be forgettable, you will be forgettable. So I think that the way that we think about it is if you're really maximizing impact, your business partners, they have an expectation, you're co-creating with them and they're integrating that into their work. If you have all these three things checked off, you know you're just knocking it out of the park. You don't have to do it all at once. You know, I've definitely have seen things that have started. These are the places that I've seen it start. Product marketing comes to me and said, I just want one more source of data for my CI team, right? It starts with the sales team is like, I just want 2 or 3 slides on every single sales deck that talk about my newest things and strengths and the wonderful things the analysts have said about us. It starts with one big gigantic like annual perception audit where the executive team goes, I want this every year. Or more importantly, I want this to be rolling across my company on an ongoing basis. Or you know what, you did that for that one product unit. I want this to be done for every single product group because I want to know where my relative strengths and weaknesses are across the firm. Start by revealing, going through that process, go through that progression, get to this point. So I think that that's the process of really maximizing that impact. So I think we've talked it. Doesn't sound like there's too many questions right now. So at least maybe I'll stop and see if there are any questions. Nothing? Good?
We're good.
Okay, very good. Okay, so what's next? Well, housekeeping. Check your email. We'll send a link of this recording to all your attendees. If there's somebody that you think, other than yourself, that could could find this useful, please feel free to share. Send us your feedback. We're always trying to figure out how to do these things better. We'll send out a post webinar survey just to get your feedback to see whether this is valuable. We always want to refine. And then if you'd like to learn more about Spotlight, or if you're thinking to yourself, you know what, this insights-driven approach, they seem like there's too many questions. I think it's something that I want to do, but I really don't know if it's something that I want to do, or I need some guidance on how to do it. Be happy to send a note to info@spotlightar.com. If you like to talk to me specifically, feel free to just mention my name. They'll make sure that it's routed to me, and I'd be more than happy to have a conversation. So that said, hey, thank you so much. And for those of you who are here for all 4 of our summer webinar series, first and foremost, thank you. Secondly, you have an amazing glutton for punishment, and I love you for it. So thank you for being part of this. Look for some announcements. We're setting our fall series for what we're going to do from a content perspective, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Thanks, guys.